Is it audible? So, I am Wasim, and I have been given responsibility for assisting you in your preparation of modern India, modern Indian history. Before we start with any serious discussion on modern Indian history, just let me know how many of you have ever studied history. When I say ever studied, that means beyond matriculation, because up to matriculation level, almost everyone, no? It is part of social sciences. So how many of you? Only graduation or post-graduation?
There was a paper in graduation.
Okay, there was okay, so those people who have history as a part of their academic courses are going to help me here in this class, okay? Now, how many of you have ever heard of this subject called history? This is very silly question, but very serious one. I'm going to establish this because history is a subject which is very controversial. We all know. We have different academic perceptions related to the same set of facts. But particularly troubling is the popular perceptions related to history. That is, history as perceived by the masses, history as perceived by the people on the streets. At times, those popular perceptions also affect us. And of course, if we are affected as a citizen, it is hardly important. But we are part of a special category of citizens who are aspiring to serve the nation. So our approach towards the subject is going to be somewhat different. Is it okay with everyone? So we can start with what? This basic understanding that many things that we popularly know, many issues that we popularly participate in, they may be somewhat differently discussed in this class. And we have to accept some degree of toleration towards the new explanations if you are already in the grip of what we can say the popular perceptions related to the subject. Is it okay? When I say popular perceptions related to the subject, that is not only related to what the people, but aspirants also. The moment we think of history, we think of dates, details, individuals, their biographies. If we talk about ancient and medieval, then some battles, their outcomes, how many soldiers killed, what kind of strategies formulated, this kind of things are there. And that's why in history, even today, we have a bias towards political history. That moment we think of history, we think of some kings, some empires, some policies, their outcomes. I hope you understand this. But like any other subject, history has also changed its nature. And today history is not only about political life, it is also about social life, it's also about economic life, it's also about cultural life. And these new dimensions of history are more important for us as UPSC aspirants. Is it okay with everyone? So let us start with this basic understanding. Our subject is, major theme is history of modern India. History of modern India. When we say history of modern India, the first issue here is, what is history? This question is what? Somewhat history, we all know. I hope you understand this. Some dates, some details, some personalities, some ideas affecting the course of history. But on a more serious note, when we try to define history, it is nothing but what? A study of process of evolution. Process of evolution. In any process of evolution, we can have some elements of change, also some elements of continuity. And evolution, by its nature, is a very complex process. Is it okay with everyone? And here, evolution simply means, since today history is a study of cultures and civilizations, not only political dimension, but all aspects. So we can simply say history is a study of evolution of cultures and civilizations. We are not going into the details of what is culture and what is civilization. Anything which is made by man, anything in which we have involvement of human ingenuity is part of culture. I hope you understand this. Let's suppose it can be contrasted with nature. The things made by God, part of nature. If you believe in God, if you don't believe in God, the things which are already there in the nature without human interference, they are part of nature. And everything, either material or ideological, in which we have role of human beings. Is it okay? Either in generation or in modification, that can be accepted as a part of the nature, culture. Is it okay? So don't you think that culture includes even God? Because the idea of God developed in human mind. Is it okay? And that's why different cultures, different civilizations, and at different times of human evolution, we have different conception of God. I hope you understand this. So anything which is a part of what has been made by man, including God, is part of culture. And then what is nature? Anything which is made by God or supposed to have been made by God, including we the people of India or we the human beings. I hope you understand how complex the situation is. God is part of culture, who is the creator of the nature. So creator of the nature himself is part of culture. And we the human beings who are maker of the culture, we ourselves are part of nature, though our behavior is modified by cultural norms, values and cultural evolution. And that's why our behavior is very complex interplay of natural instincts and cultural injunctions and cultural demands. And through this behavior, complex human behavior, we shape the course of a history. Is it okay? And that is nothing but evolution. From one material condition to another, from one ideological position to another. I hope you understand this. So there was a time when we used stone tools, metal tools beginning with copper, and today we say that we have reached post-industrial age and also post-iron age. Few people also say that this is post-modern age or silicon age. I hope you understand this. From those stone tools, simple stone tools, to modern complex devices, today we are talking about artificial intelligence. Don't you think it has been a course of evolution characterized by stages? I hope you understand what is the essence of history. So if we talk about material life, from stone tools to modern complex devices, all are part of historical evolution. And if you talk about ideological evolution, don't you think that there was a time when we had the system of slavery? You must be knowing this practice. And slavery was well accepted, well justified in almost all societies of the known world, or the parts of the world with well-known historical traditions, be it European society or the Middle East or India, China, Japan. In almost all societies, slavery was accepted. Can we accept that institution today, ideologically? Can we provide any moral justification for that institution today? What is the reason? The world is same. But the time in which we are living, that is different. And why this time is different? Because in this time we have different kind of ideological climate. But who has created this ideological climate? We the human beings. Is it okay with you? So today we talk about what? Citizens. Today we talk about fundamental rights. Today we talk about human rights. Though it is another issue that we have yet not fully secured what we call human rights. But don't you think that if we talk about ideological evolution, we have started talking about even protection of animal rights? Leave aside the weaknesses of what we can say, the protection of human rights. So this is what? This is part of the ideological evolution. Is it okay? If we be more specific related to modern India, you must have some idea of modern India, because whenever we study history, we study modern India. No, this is the popular perception. So there was a time when British rule, the British Raj, was accepted by the Indian leaders as a positive factor in the evolution of India into a modern nation. We can think of the early Congress leaders. Drain of wealth, the poverty and un-British rule in India. It was not British rule, it was un-British rule. And British rule was accepted as a historical necessity that was required for the advancement of India, for its political advancement, for development of democratic ideals and institutions, for its economic advantage, that is development of modern industries. It was only when the nationalist hopes were frustrated by the colonial measures that we find demand for Swaraj, or in due course of time demand for Pund Swaraj. So from that position, that is accepting and appreciating British rule, to criticizing and rejecting it, and not only criticizing and rejecting it but also demanding the freedom. Don't you think it was an ideological evolution on the part of Indian national movement? I hope you understand what is the essence of a history. So when we say history of modern India, that is evolution of modern India. Is it okay? Because history, essence of history is evolution, not only in context of ancient and medieval, but also in context of the modern. And when we talk about evolution, we include the entire cultural aspects, all cultural dimensions. Though there was a time when political dimension was given more importance than other dimensions, but now things are changed. Is it okay with everyone? So now in history we can study economy also, society also. Is it okay with everyone? And that's why history becomes what? General studies, because in general studies also we study almost all aspects of life. So history simply becomes general studies of the past societies, don't you think so? And it finally merges into your general studies, all aspects, economy, polity, culture, almost all dimensions you can think of as part of your preparation, they are part of also a history. Is it okay with everyone? So history becomes what we can say, the general studies of the past societies, and that's why it can not only be used as a subject, but it can also be used as a tool for our preparation. Is it okay with everyone? That is the general awareness that we are going to have here in discipline called history, by using what is called transfer of training from one discipline to another. We can utilize historical concepts to understand complicated concepts in other dimensions of our preparation. Is it okay with everyone? And it can be vice versa also. So there can be no situation in which you can say that I have not studied history, because many times we say, history, I don't like history, I don't study, I have never studied history. If you have studied polity, that is part of history. If you have ever studied economy, that is also part of history. If you are interested in art and culture, that is part of history. If you are interested simply in technology, history of technology is also part of history. So these are some popular perceptions related to the history that we need to change. There can be no situation in which we can say that I have never studied history, but in history we of course deal with the same subject matter, but our approach is different, and that we have just discussed. That here in history we take things on an evolutionary scale. That is from one material condition to another, from one ideological position to another, the relationship between the two, that is material position and the ideological position, and related causes and consequences. Is it okay with everyone? This is the essence of the discipline called history. Now, evolution of, so can we write this as evolution of modern India? History of modern India is nothing but evolution of modern India. Then the next question is, what is modern India? Then what do you mean by the term modern? How to define modernity? How to perceive modernity? In fact, we are not going to define modernity, because that is not only a very difficult task, but that is also out of fashion. We are living in an age which is increasingly being described as the postmodern age. And in postmodern age, we have some popular academic tendencies. One such tendency is not to define things, because now defining things are being perceived as what? Some sort of imposition of your own ideas upon others. So that is what? Violation of democratic notions in academic world. So when we define things, we not only express our opinion, but we also try to shape the opinion of others regarding the same. Is it okay? I have understood things like this, and you need also to understand things like This only then your understanding can be what? Accepted as good understanding or in harmony with the subject. So this is somewhat violation of what we can say the intellectual freedom. Is it okay? People have right to define things, to perceive things the way they like, unless until they pose what? Some difficulties to our coexistence and something like this. Is it okay with everyone? So we cannot define what is modernity. Of course, more complicated is to define India. We are coming to this topic. Is it okay? But what do you think? What is modernity? When we say history of modern India is evolution of modern India, then what is modern India? An India which is perceived as modern. So the way a nation like India can be perceived as modern, in the similar way, a person can also be perceived as modern or pre-modern or medieval or ancient. Don't you think so? So look at me. Now, make a judgment. No need to share with me whether I am modern or not. I'm not interested in your conclusion. I'm interested in your process. The process through which you are reaching a conclusion whether I am modern or not. So look at me and describe me whether I am modern or not. Look at me. Forget about the culture. Look at me and make a comment about me here in this class openly. Hmm? Is Indian society modern? Somewhat. It means modern transformation is matter of degree. Is Indian polity modern? Is Indian polity, if we talk about Indian constitution, its ideals, its institutions, its practices. Okay, what is the degree of modern? Is the degree of modernity similar in both polity and in society? Yes. Our society is as modern as our polity. No. That is not the case. It means we are perceiving modernity. And that's why you are in a position to say that our society is less modern than our polity. If we talk about our political system, if we talk about the ideals on which the system is based, if we talk about the institutions that the system has created, if we talk about the very functioning, despite all their practical limitations, Indian political system is supposed to be one of the most modern political system of the modern world. Is it okay? And it can be compared with what? The American Constitution, which is supposed to be what we can say a model for modernity. Is it okay? American society. No? Today, we are going to talk about American Revolution in world history. So America is what? Identical with modernity, identified with modernity. So modern society is like American society. That may be some biased kind of opinion, but very popular. Modern economy is like what? Like American economy. A modern man is like what? An American man. And that's why in India also, if we see someone, and by our standard, if that person appears to be what? More modern, so we can simply say, America se aaye ho kya be? I hope you understand this. Is it okay? So what does it mean when we say America se aaye ho kya? I hope you understand. We are trying to contrast that person with an average Indian. And in our own estimation, that may be correct, that may be incorrect. We are considering that person as more modern or something different, if not more modern. And that difference is of course associated with modernity, there is no doubt about it. Is it okay? We can have Eastern notions of modernity, we can have Western notions of modernity, but these are other kind of debates we are not going to discuss. But at least today American society is supposed to be what? Modern. American economy is modern, American culture is modern. By what standard we apply this kind of terms like American polity is modern? And if we find similar things in Indian polity is modern. But if we evaluate Indian society, we say that Indian society is not as modern as the American society for simple reasons, because some social ideals and institutions which are cornerstones of American society, may be not well developed in the Indian society. That is the reason. So, since you have reached this conclusion, let me assume, and this assumption is not totally ill-founded, that you perceive what is modernity. Is it okay? Here I am just going to discuss some aspects of modernity. Is it okay? And that will be what? Something like giving voice to what is there in your mind. Is it okay? So suppose, if I am talking about political life, and the way we have evolutionary courses in other aspects of life, in political life also we have evolution, because history, essence of history is evolution. And suppose I am talking about kings, princes, courtiers, empires, succession, disputes, battles of successions, wars, conquests, feudal lords, subjects, duties. Now, what kind of polity is taking shape in your mind? Medieval or ancient? Either medieval or ancient. Is it okay? Either medieval or ancient. There was a time, when we had theories like divine origin of kingship, and sovereignty was what? Not with the people, but with a person, a king. What progress we have made so far? That the power that was vested in one king is now shared by we the people. And this way subjects have been converted into citizens. So subjects mainly with duties to citizens mainly with rights. So if any rights enjoyed by medieval or ancient people, that was what? An act of compassion on the part of the state. It was not something that was accepted as entitlement of the subjects. But today, I hope you understand, the situation is different. So if I talk about kings, princes, empires, wars, conquests, empire building, we are developing this impression that I am talking about ancient or medieval political systems across the world. It is not only about India. But if I talk about nation states, if I talk about a sovereignty of the people, if I talk about national governments or constitutional governments, including constitutional monarchy, if I talk about plebiscite, if I talk about referendum, if I talk about self-determination, if I talk about nationalism, if I talk about liberalism, not only as an economic philosophy, but also as a political philosophy. Liberalism is nothing but democracy. And democracy is based on twin pillars of representation and responsibility. So if I talk about representation, representative bodies, different layers or labels of representation, if I talk about responsibility of the executive or the government, if I talk about separation of powers, if I talk about judicial activism, now what kind of impression you are having in your mind? I am talking about what kind of polity? Modern polity. I hope you understand the difference between what was the political life in ancient and medieval. Is it okay? And what differences we notice in the age which is modern. So when we say modern Indian history and when we say modern Indian political history, that simply means what? That is the evolution of India as a nation, a state, that is evolution of democratic ideals and institutions in the Indian political system, evolution of representation or representative system in the Indian political system, conversion of subjects into citizens, acknowledgement of the rights of the Indian. I hope you understand this. Is it okay with everyone? So we have some idea what kind of transformation we have witnessed in modern age and how modern life is different from what can be or what is usually described as ancient or medieval. Is it okay with everyone? This is one aspect. Now you can keep on exploring on the basis of your own understanding. Is it okay? What all may include or we can include in the list of elements of modernity in our political life. So if I talk about franchise, universal adult franchise. Don't you think it is an element which can be easily recognized? India is witnessing election. If we talk about extension of franchise, suppose if the age bar is reduced from 18 to 16, that may be part of electoral reforms. Is it okay? Suppose if we impose property qualification, today we are practicing what is called universal adult suffrage. Suppose we impose property qualification. Okay, now only those people who have property of a particular value in both rural and urban areas are entitled to vote. This is a qualification. There was a time when this qualification was there. Don't you think that this process can be called a reversal of modernity? That process can be called reversal of modernity, because modernity is about what? Representation. Modernity is about responsibility. Suppose modernity is about man-centric world. It is not about God-centric world. And that's why modernity is about rights of the man. But if we try to impose restrictions on the rights of the man, and that goes beyond reasonable restriction, something that has been accepted by our Honorable Supreme Court also, don't you think it is again reversal of modernity? Or it can be considered as something else, like people are there who use the term postmodern for this. In postmodern, we have very powerful streams or streaks of reversal of modernity. That is a shift towards medievalism or ancient societies. That is also part of revivalism. There is also part of revivalism. Is it okay? Today, suppose our government of India or state governments, if their responsibility towards representative bodies, Lok Sabha in case of central government and legislative assemblies in case of state governments, if that responsibility is reduced, then what will happen? Don't you think it is reversal of modern political system? So one more thing we can understand here, that history is not a straight line in which we have only a progress and progress. We can have also reverses. And that's why the process of historical evolution becomes very complex. Is it okay with everyone? So it is never a straight line. And that's why at times it becomes very difficult to define what is rise and what is decline. What is rise and what is decline? Let me give you a very famous example of our own culture. I think that much Hindi is tolerable. This is just कि हंस चुनेगा दाना कौवा मोती खाएगा. Have you ever heard of this sayings, popular saying? No? This is about Kaljug. There is contemplation of an age that will be Kali Yug. Is it okay? Age of decline. And this age of decline will be characterized by what? Hans chunega dana kauwa moti khayega. Is it okay? Now, of course, it is an age of decline. But from whose perspective? Only from the perspective of Hans. Only from the perspective of Hans. What about the perspective of Kauwa? Kauwa to moti kha raha hai. So in a phase or in a stage of historical evolution in which Kauwa is now enjoying moti, I hope understand that is an age of rise for Kauwa. An age of decline can be confined only to Hans. So then which age is going to be defined as the age of rise or age of progress also becomes a matter of perception. There was a time when we talked about the decline of Europe. We still talk about the decline of Europe. You know, after First World War, after Second World War, when we have rise of USSR, rise of USA, world became bipolar, and Europe started losing its importance. Is it okay? In the world history. And then we have decolonization, then we have rise of the third world. Most of the European powers lost their vast colonial empires. Of course, that was a time in European history which came to be perceived as age of decline. And since we have what is called Eurocentric approaches, I hope you understand the meaning of this Eurocentric approach. Is it okay? So rise of Europe is rise of the world, decline of Europe is decline of the world. So we also started talking about, that is, decline of Europe came to be identified with decline of the world. But when Europe was declining, don't you think third world was rising? We have decolonization. We have newly emerged states, when we have new roles played by the countries of the third world. So now how to decline? Whether 20th century is the age of rise or age of decline? I hope you understand the complexities involved. Is it okay? So it is not only that in history we can have reverses. In fact, these reverses and progressive trends are also visualized differently. And all depends upon what we can say socio-ideological locations. And there is one thing, here we can see the role of power equation. Is it okay? That is postmodern explanation. When two individuals meet, in fact that is interaction between two power situations. When two nations interact, so what is right, what is wrong, what is justified, what is not justified, is it okay, is based on the power, or the chemistry which is evolving when we have this interaction between the two power situations. So we have Napoleon in France, no? You must be knowing. A very celebrated figure in world history, Napoleon Bonaparte. Now in India also we have Samudragupta. So Samudragupta came to be described as Napoleon of India. Why not Napoleon as Samudragupta of France? I hope you understand what is called Eurocentric approach. Is it okay? Because France and Europe dominated, Napoleon dominated. Is it okay? And that is not only confined to this. We have a poet Kalidas, and we have a British poet Shakespeare, you must have heard of. So Kalidas came to be known as a Shakespeare of India. Why not Shakespeare as Kalidas of England? Is it okay? Then one more thing. We have a river in the North India, Ganga river. We have a river in the south, Godavari. And Godavari is called Ganga of the south. Why not Ganga is called Godavari of the north? I hope you understand. History writing is not democratic. Is it okay? And this reflects the cultural domination of the north. This reflects the political domination of the north. It means not only at the world level history writing is not democratic, but even at the national level. And that's why we have of late started talking about, you must have heard of this very popular expression, unsung heroes. Have you ever heard of? Unsung heroes of history. The people whose role, whose sacrifices not duly acknowledged in the mainstream of history writing. And the way we can have unsung heroes, in the same way we can have unsung communities, if you extend. In the same way we can have unsung areas, that is areas of Indian subcontinent whose history not paid attention to. I think one such area is Northeast India. I think few years back a student of Delhi University has made a complaint that I have devoted 6 or 7 years in this university studying history, but I have not noticed even a single chapter on the Northeast. And see the NCRTs. I hope you understand this. So here let me tell you very frankly and very clearly that we are going to deal with a system of knowledge which is very complicated. And if we are driven by only what we can say the popular perceptions of history, we are going to be lost somewhere. Is it okay? History discipline is very complicated. First thing, it deals with almost all dimensions of life on an evolutionary scale, and that again we have different perceptions, different explanations, and we have sharp contrast between the way the subject is popularly perceived and the way subject is academically understood and studied. Is it okay? That is role of God in history is also very important. We discussed just that God is also part of cultural evolution. This may be somewhat hurting to the people who believe in religions, and their belief in religion is somewhat very strong. Everything is determined by God. So don't you think that if we accept this God-centric approach of history, the discipline will lose its importance as a serious academic discipline? I will give you one example. You must have heard of the Third Battle of Panipat. Third Battle of Panipat. Those who have not heard it, let me tell you. There was a battle between Afghans and the Marathas in the 1761. That battle is called the Third Battle of Panipat. This battle had taken place in the year 1761. Is it okay? In this battle, Marathas were disastrously defeated by Ahmad Shah Abdali. And now let us discuss the causes behind the defeat of the Marathas. Is it okay? So we can talk about their political weaknesses, that politically they were not united. We can talk about their military weaknesses, because they were well versed in the guerrilla warfare, but not well experienced in the pitched battles, P-I-T-C-H-E-D, that is open battles. We can talk about their weaker economic base, which made them looters and plunderers of their neighbors. Marathas are known for their looting and plundering activities, which antagonized other powers, and that's why they could not get support of any noticeable Indian power at the time of this battle. That is lack of political allies. We can talk about inefficiency of the Maratha army also, because it was a huge slow moving army. Is it okay? So this way we can explain. Suppose a gentleman comes and starts interfering in our discussion, and he simply says that all these explanations are what? False. And the defeat of Maratha was because of the will of God. उस दिन यही होना था, होनी होकर रहती है. You must have heard of this kind of expressions. यहां लिखा हुआ था. ठीक है, जीत कैसे जाता? प्रभु की इच्छा. And then what about the discipline called history? Don't you think that we have just killed the discipline called history? There is no use. When we accept will of God in shaping the course of history and historical evolution, what is left for we the human beings to do and to understand what we have done? Is it okay with everyone? And that's why religion has some basic panga with what we can say history. And that's why in history classes, we warn people, of course, have your religious opinions. Religion is matter of faith. But while understanding history, for the time being, let us move beyond the realm of faith to realm of reason. Let us allow our mind to use its critical faculties to understand and explain certain situations. Is it okay? So this faith-based history writing has also created much complications. And not only in case of this, but also in others. Suppose we at times develop faith in personalities. Suppose there may be supporters of Gandhi in this class. History does not acknowledge any kind of emotional attachment with any personality. History pretends to be a rational subject. Last year there was a question, what would have been the fate of Indian national movement in the absence of Gandhi? Fate of Indian national movement, or the nature of Indian national movement in the absence of Gandhi. See, the way they are asking questions. Questions are very complicated. These questions cannot be written only on the basis of facts and details. Is it okay? So if you don't understand, this question is only on Gandhi. But this presupposes an understanding of the entire Indian national movement. What would have been the Indian national movement in the absence of Gandhi? That simply means the entire Indian national movement, which also includes Gandhi. So entire Indian national movement minus Gandhi. I hope you understand this. Though things are never so mathematical in social sciences. Minus Gandhi plus alternative possibilities. The possibilities which could not be realized. Possibilities regarding which we have today some historians becoming more and more emotional. Had this been allowed by Gandhi earlier, that if the Chauri Chaura mob had been not prevented, India would have got its independence long back, that is in the 20s itself. Had Bhagat Singh lived longer, something like this. So in history we have a very popular school that is called What Would Have Been School of History. क्या हुआ होता अगर ये नहीं होता? Is it okay? And particularly this kind of approach is followed when we have some emotional connection. So what would have been Indian history had partition not taken place? We are the people who are affected by partition. So we have this kind of sentimental, emotional issues with partition. But what about this issue after 10,000 years or after 1,000 years? because the people living after, forget 10,000, 1,000, even 500 years, they would be almost free from the direct implications of the partition. So in their mind, we cannot have this kind of questions. What would have been the fate of Indian history in the absence of a partition? So at times, since history is what happened, history is not what would have happened. History is what happened, because at any given point of time, we can have what we can say umpteen number of possibilities. The way we find things in the game of chess. अगर ये होता तो ये हो जाता, ये होता तो ये हो जाता, लेकिन that is not history. ठीक है, history वही है जो हुआ. Is it okay? But at times they ask you this kind of questions. What would have been the nature of Indian national movement in the absence of Gandhi? So that is a question which is inspired by this philosophy. What would have been school? So the total Indian national movement minus Gandhi plus alternative possibilities, supported by some instances like the Quit India movement when Gandhi was arrested, and the movement became more violent, more spontaneous. So there was a time in Indian national movement when Gandhi was not there to provide active leadership. And that gives us some idea what would have been the nature of Indian national movement in the absence of Gandhi. But of course we need to write. Okay, all these are simply matters of historical speculation. If you don't write this single line, your answer is not correct. Because who can decide? It is not about academic excellence. It is not about mastery of the subject. It is about the approach towards the subject. Who will decide what would have happened to Indian history in the absence of Gandhi? This is something which is beyond the capacity of the historians to decide. This is beyond the capacity of the subject itself to determine. Is it okay with everyone? And here if you try to write a definitive answer, a definite answer to this, कि यही हुआ होता है, इसके सिवा कुछ नहीं हुआ होता, had Gandhi been alive or Gandhi been not there in the Indian national movement, then of course you are writing an answer on a very wrong line, which is not academically correct. If something which is not knowable or which has not been known in history, and if you try to supply the answer related to that, you are digging your own graves. I hope you understand this. Is it okay? So now not much about this. I hope you understand the way we can perceive modern. Is it okay? The way issues like rise and decline, the way we perceive individuals and their roles, the way we perceive circumstances, all these issues with time we can keep on discussing. But for the time being, to make the subject more interesting and more concrete, let us come back to this. Is it okay? We just talked about modernity in political life. What is modernity in economic life? This is just to develop some idea. When we say evolution of history of modern India, that simply means evolution of modern India. One aspect of this evolution is political, in which we have what? Not kings, not empires, not colonialism, but what? Modern democratic system with its representative bodies and responsible traditions. Is it okay? And then empowerment of the citizens and all. This is one aspect of this transformation which has taken place in the recent time. Then what about economic modernity? How modernity is perceived in economic life? Open market economy, barter system, globalization, liberalization. But there are people who say that liberalization, globalization, they are part of postmodern, they are not part of modern. Industrialization, yes. Industrial revolution. Industrial, yes. Then? So should we not compare it with medieval or ancient? So if you talk about ancient economy, don't you think it was, or medieval economy, those economies were mainly subsistence economies. Of course surplus was produced, but that was very limited. When we talk about modern societies and modern industrial societies. When we have become very, what we can say, quite conscious of a standard of living. When we have consumerism, when consumption itself becomes our need. So we consume things to satisfy our needs, but there comes a time, as a result of aggressive marketing and so many other things, that consumption itself becomes what? A human need. If you don't consume, you will feel as inferior human being. Is it okay with everyone? So medieval societies, ancient societies were not based on what we can say. Of course surplus was produced, but that surplus production was quite limited. That means economy was not well diversified, or not as diversified as what we can say the modern economy. And when we talk about diversification of economic activities, we talk about two important areas: craft specialization in ancient and medieval, and exchange network. Is it okay? It means craft specialization was limited, exchange network was also very limited. And agriculture was the mainstay of economic life. And we have, of course, this was not uniform. We have different kind of systems in different parts of the world. If we talk about India, so in India you must have heard of Jajmani system and self-sufficient village economies. That is village artisans, village peasants, catering to the needs of each other. So village peasants produced, where they produce something, they produced not only for themselves but also for village artisans, and village artisans kept on rendering their services throughout the year without charging specifically, and in the hope of receiving a part of the agricultural produce at the time of the harvest. Market was also very limited. Is it okay with everyone? And this economy was broken by the colonialism when we have introduction of modern means of transport and communication. So when we talk about traditional economy, that was basically feudal, that was largely agricultural, limited surplus production. Of course we have craft activities, we have exchange network, but that was very limited. But when we talk about modern economy, of course still agriculture is still there, but don't you think that other sectors have become more important than agriculture? And that is nothing but diversification of economic activities. Agriculture is largely what? Based on subsistence. It is not based on what we can say a standard of living. So whenever we think of a standard of living today, we think of other areas, not of agriculture. Is it okay? So if we talk about industrial revolution or industrialization, if we talk about capitalism, don't forget it. We cannot talk about capitalism in ancient or medieval ages. Of course, in ancient and medieval ages also, we can have traces of capital investment for earning a profit. But degree is something which is very important in this case. Is it okay? So when we talk about industrial revolution, when we talk about capitalism, when we talk about contractual relation, not conventional relation in the system of production and distribution. Is it okay? When we talk about surplus production, when we talk about a standard of living, when we talk about optimum utilization of natural resources, optimum development of human resources, when we have increasing role of state in economic life, giving birth to what we can say modern political economy. So this economy can be accepted as what? Modern economy. Is it okay with everyone? Of course we have different versions of modern economy. Is it okay? Because we have not only capitalist but also a socialist economic models. Is it okay with everyone? What is modernity in society? The life of my grandfather and my great-grandfather was almost same. Both were peasants living in a village. Their customs, traditions, taboos, reservations, social attitude, almost same. Is it okay? And that's why when the Britishers came to India, they criticized Indians for not having a sense of history, and India as not having history itself. Because history is about what? Evolution. And according to them, Indian society had not evolved. No? And there was a stagnation. There was a stagnation. Generations after generations living in the similar fashion, in the same settlements. Is it okay? Doing the same work without any major innovations, either related to production or related to distribution or simply related to social organization. Nothing new was happening. And when nothing new was happening, history was not taking its course. History was not evolving. So they considered India as a country which lacks history and Indians as a people who lack historical sense. Is it okay with everyone? But that was something that we don't find in case of what? Modern age. Our national leaders demanded industrialization. And when they realized that colonial government is not interested in industrializing India, they started demanding independence. Is it okay? And post-independence history is nothing but what? Our attempt to make India a modern, not only a modern polity, but also modern economy and modern society. And that's why Indian Constitution is accepted not only as a political revolution, but also as a socio-cultural and economic revolution. Is it okay with everyone? So what is modern in society? Don't you think today, suppose, I had asked a question, ki, look at me and decide whether I am modern or not. So in fact, data was not sufficiently available to you. You could have decided this issue on the basis of what? My appearance, but appearance, of course, from upper Paleolithic age, we have Homo sapiens sapiens. So I am also a Homo sapien, a sapien. Still lamenting the loss of our tails. No? पूछे खत्म हो गई हमारी, अगर होती तो कितना मजा आता, सोचिए आज. ठीक है. But from that point of view, all are modern. Now you can decide modernity on the basis of my dress. You are wearing shirt, you are wearing jeans. But that is very limited. You don't know about my social outlook, you don't know about my political thoughts. One thing is modern here because I am earning my livelihood from service sector, that is tertiary sector. I am not an agriculturalist. Is it okay? So this way, sir, your occupation is modern, but we don't know about your a social attitude. We don't know about your political inclinations. Is it okay? So data is insufficiently available to categorize me as modern or medieval or ancient. So suppose if I start talking about birth-based distinctions, here standing in this class, I'm not talking, but suppose I'm talking about birth-based distinctions, and I'm trying to give them legitimacy and validity. कि जो जहाँ पैदा होता है ना भाई साहब, संस्कार भी कोई चीज होती है. कुछ भी कर लो, पैसा कमा लोगे, संस्कार कहाँ से लाओगे? वो तो ब्लड में होता है, वो तो खून में होता है, वो तो पैदा होते आता है. Are you changing your approach towards me? Most of you. Maybe some of you happy from inside कि इसका भी एटीट्यूड हमारे जैसा है. सही बोल रहा है, सही बोल रहा है ये. Maybe some of you, but not all of you. In fact, most of you. Because we are living in modern age where we have accepted the principle of equality, which is well enshrined in our constitution, well defined by our Supreme Court. And today we don't acknowledge birth-based distinctions. Is it okay? And anyone who talks about birth-based distinctions today cannot be accepted as modern man. Is it okay with everyone? So social modernity is about what? Nuclear family system or joint family system? I hope you understand this. The status of women. What is modernity in the status of women? Inside house or outside house? Or equal participation? Equal participation. I hope you understand this. No? What about paternalistic attitude and paternalistic sentiments? What is paternalism? That our parents decide what is good for us, no? At times the same paternalistic approach is displayed by the state. The state can decide what is good for the citizens, no? The colonial government. And we have this notion of colonial paternalism. That British government decided what was good for Indians, no? Simon Commission, you must be knowing. And what was the Indian discontent related to the Simon Commission? Ki our constitutional fate is being decided and we are not given any participation. Colonial authorities, and what was their attitude? तुम चुप रहो, तुम बच्चे हो, तुम्हें क्या पता व्हाट इज सेल्फ रूल. कि इतना नहीं पता, हमारे यहाँ दादा भाई नौरोजी पैदा हुए, ये हुए वो हुए, बोले चुप रहो, सब ऐसे ही थे. देखिए, वी आर द पीपल who are the most modern. We are the people with civilizational burden. We are the people who are morally responsible for your upliftment. You ignorant Indians, we are going to teach you what is self-rule. I hope you understand this. That is called paternalism. Do you think that today we accept this kind of paternalistic notions, either from a state or from the family heads? पहले जमाने में बाप अपने बेटों को खूब पीटते थे. आज पीट के दिखा, बेटा चला जाएगा थाने में और दरोगा जी वापस नहीं करेंगे, समझा बुझा जाओ, बाप है, मारा है तो क्या हुआ, वो केस लिख लेगा कि ठीक है बाप ही है तो क्या हुआ, कैसे मार सकते हो, वो भी इस तरह से. आई होप अंडरस्टैंड दिस. सो पैट्रियार्की इज डाइल्यूटेड और नॉट? ठीक है. व्हाट इज अबाउट द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन हस्बैंड एंड वाइफ? Do you notice any change here? Earlier husbands, no, wife beaters husbands. We had a category of, humans. Okay? And you'll be surprised to know that in villages and even in urban areas, even people don't have concern with others. But in village societies also, when people are concerned with others, okay, and these husbands are allowed to beat their wives. कि जानो तो वो खिलाता है, उसकी औरत है, वो चाहे जैसा उसको रखे, मारता वही, खिलाता भी तो वही. तो खिलाता है तो मारने का जस्टिफिकेशन भी है. Do you think that in modern society this attitude can be accepted, this attitude can be tolerated? I hope you understand this. So in society, in our families, in every relationship, earlier what was important? Institutions were important, individuals were not important. So marriage is an institution. So once married, married forever, 7 lives, 7 janmon tak. And there was a trap, let me tell you. What was that trap? कि जब जब शादी हुई 7 जन्मों के लिए हुई, मतलब फ्रीडम नहीं था. Have you ever heard of a marriage जिसमें ये कहा गया हो कि 6 जन्म हो चुके हैं, ये लास्ट वाला है, बचा हुआ है, कर लेते हैं इसको. Once married, individual was not important. Whether the marriage is producing happiness or sorrow, that was immaterial. You have to respect the sanctity of this institution. Individual happiness was not important. But when we have individualism, and human happiness was given importance, and when we have passing of the Hindu Marriage Act, sometime in 50s, divorce was allowed. I hope you understand this. What about polygamy? What about child marriage? What about our attitude towards sati system? I hope you understand what is social modernity. Now it is about your imagination. Is it okay? I have just given you some sample areas that how modernity is perceived, how modernity is understood in different areas of life, in different walks of life. Is it okay? So when we say history of modern India, I hope you understand now, evolution of modern India, that is evolution of modern Indian polity, evolution of modern Indian society, evolution of modern Indian economy. This is our primary task. If you don't understand this, and if you are preoccupied with facts and details, of course your understanding is very primitive, which may still help you in PT. Because at times in PT they ask stupid kind of questions, no? But that is not the ultimate achievement. I hope you understand this. But if you understand the deep-rooted historical processes, facts and details are going to take care of themselves. We cannot understand things, we cannot remember things without understanding. And once we understand things, things are automatically remembered. So forget about that popular notion that in history we have to be preoccupied with what? Facts and details, year at year. And this is true in almost all aspects, because this exam is never about extraordinary facts and details, because that has no limit. 50 किताब पढ़ लो, 55वीं किताब से सवाल पूछ देंगे आपसे. यूपीएससी हैज दिस कैपेसिटी. उनके पास और कोई काम नहीं है, उनके पास बहुत सारे लोग हैं. So if you are trying to base your preparation on facts and details, you are not following a path which is useful. ठीक है, और थक भी जाओगे. So this exam is never about extraordinary. It is about what? Extraordinary command over ordinary. It is about extraordinary command over ordinary. I hope you understand the meaning of this term. ठीक है. So जिस साल एक difficult question पूछ दिया, उसके लिए आप बड़ी बड़ी किताब लेकर आए, because question की degree of difficulty यहाँ से थी. उसी साल moderate degree of difficulty के बहुत सारे questions आपसे छूट गए थे. उसके लिए क्या कर रहे हैं? और जब यहां फोकस करोगे तो ऐसे और भी छूटेंगे. तो किसी साल डिफिकल्ट नहीं बना पाए, किसी साल आसान छूट गए. आई होप अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट विल हैपन. इज इट ओके? सो अ बैलेंस्ड अप्रोच इज रिक्वायर्ड. एंड लेट मी टेल यू कि दिस एग्जाम इज ऑल्सो नॉट अबाउट, बिकॉज सम रॉन्ग नोशंस आर देयर, दिस एग्जाम इज ऑल्सो नॉट अबाउट नॉलेज. इट इज अबाउट योर पर्सनैलिटी. अ टास्क इज गिवन टू यू. इफ यू हैव सम पर्सनैलिटी ट्रेट्स, यू कैन परफॉर्म दैट टास्क बेटर देन अदर्स. As simple as this. It is not about absolute performance, it is about a relative performance. Always remember. ऐसा नहीं कि दुनिया के सारे फैक्ट्स आप जान लेंगे तो आईएएस बनेंगे. आपसे कम जाने हुए लोग आईएएस बने घूम रहे हैं. Is it okay? So relative performance, not absolute performance. And that's why use of knowledge is very important than possession of knowledge. Of course possession of knowledge is important, because without that we cannot use it. But preoccupied with knowing, ये भी जान ले, ये भी जान ले, ये भी जान ले, ये भी जान ले. You should focus upon how to use our knowledge, because this is about use of knowledge. You must be knowing कि एक आदमी जिसके पास राइफल हो, चलाना नहीं आता हो, एक आदमी जिसके पास लाठी हो, चलाना आता हो, भारी कौन पड़ेगा? Very simple. So change some notions. And elsewhere it may not be required, but in history this is required. I'm not talking about polity, because there are limited facts, limited provisions. In history, unlimited facts, unlimited details. पूरी लाइफ बिता दो हिस्टोरिकल नेशनल मूवमेंट में, एक दिन में जो हुआ था वो पूरा नहीं जान पाओगे. पूरी लाइफ बिता दो. What happened on 15th of August 1947? And all those facts and details, once asked, they would appear important. You know, ये तो जानना चाहिए था. पूरी जिंदगी बिता दो, 15 अगस्त को क्या हुआ था नहीं जान पाओगे. Is it okay with everyone? ठीक है. So in history, please move beyond this preoccupation with facts and details. That is something which you cannot master except it. So what we can do? We should divert our energy to the areas where we have some command, where we can develop some command. And that is what? Understanding. Because data is meaningless unless until we draw some meaningful conclusions. So in history, data and details are what? Unlimited. And so here if you try to master them, वो conclusions आप कभी draw ही नहीं कर पाओगे, जो conclusions आपको चाहिए. And you must be knowing, it's all about critical faculties of mind. I told you. Individual differences are expressed when we go about this business of preparation. किसी को 5 facts मिले, inductive, deductive reasoning, उसने valid conclusion draw कर लिए, उसकी तैयारी हो गई. किसी को 500 facts मिले, उसने ये valid conclusion draw नहीं किए, उसकी तैयारी नहीं हुई. Is it okay? And then this, I will give you a very simple example. A person is not interested in you, not friendly towards you. You can know on the basis of simply his appearance, the way he treats you. 1 or 2 instances may be sufficient for an intelligent mind to discover this. Is it okay? But there can be people, जब तक कि उनको थप्पड़ नहीं पड़ेगा पता नहीं चलेगा. It's all about individual differences. ठीक है. जब वो थप्पड़ खा लेंगे तो कहेगा yes, now it's okay. Now it has been clear कि person is not interested in me. So जब तक उस conclusion तक नहीं पहुंचते हो, कितने भी dates details जान लो, they are useless, and particularly in history. Is it okay? So our approach in this class is going to be what? That we are going to focus upon understanding with sufficient details. It is not that we are going to miss details, but this is just for your preoccupation with details, that I am telling all these things to you. Otherwise, we are going to include them as part of our discussion. But these are some tendencies which are generally noticed among aspirants, particularly related to history. Is it okay? Now let us move beyond this. Is it okay? So what we have discussed till now? We have discussed nothing. Nothing concrete. We have talked about the subject called history. Is it okay? And there we discussed that history is a discipline in which we have what? Evolution from one stage to another. Not only in political life, which was the earlier views, but also economic, social, that is all dimensions of life, from one stage to another. When we talk about cultural evolution, 2 important areas can be identified, material and ideological. To be more precise, we can say from one material condition to another, and from one ideological position to another. Is it okay? And then there are certain traits noticed in different walks of life, which are perceived as modern traits, like democracy in polity, like capitalism in economy, like equality in a society. And when we understand, when we try to study history of modern India, or for that matter, history of any country in modern age, we try to understand the evolution of such ideals and institutions at the world level. The same task is there. When we study world history, the same task is there. And that's why American Revolution is important. That's why French Revolution is important. And why Indian National Movement is important? Because Indian National Movement was not only about political liberation, it was also about developing democratic credentials of the Indian people. And survival of Indian democracy is also explained on the basis of the legacy of the Indian National Movement and the politicization and the nature of politicization in the course of the Indian National Movement. Is it okay with everyone? And then history of modern India, this transformation is characterized by, let us be more specific now. We can identify some stages. We know history of modern India is making of modern India. In making of modern India, we can have role of colonialism. But colonial modernity was heavily distorted, partial, incomplete. Is it okay? Of course, capitalist transformation took place. Democratic ideals and institutions were introduced, but they had their limitations in the colonial context. Is it okay? And that's why colonial modernity is called partial modernity. But despite this, we appreciate the role of colonialism in creating circumstances for modern transformation. And that's why we have a very famous historian, you must have heard of this historian and his statement, R.C. Majumdar. And R.C. Majumdar says that on 23rd June 1757, I hope you understand, this was the date of the Battle of Plassey. We know the outcome of this battle. Siraj-ud-Dawla defeated by Clive and Watson. And that marks the beginning of colonialism. And it was in appreciation of the role of colonialism in modernizing India that R.C. Majumdar made an observation, which is also asked as a question, that on 23rd June 1757, medieval ages came to an end in India and the modern started. See the role of colonialism and the way it has been appreciated. He compares this event with beginning of modernity. Because Indian modernity was due to the British rule, and British rule was founded as a result of the Battle of Plassey. We can disagree with him because modern transformation is what? A long-term complicated process. It cannot be associated with a single event. It cannot be associated with a single date. And in fact, this is still going on. We have still many areas of life in which modern ideals and institutions are not well established. So our polity may be more modern, but our society is not as modern as our political system, something with which we started our discussion. And still we can have communities, we can have individuals, we can have areas, which are lagging behind in terms of modern transformation. So this transformation is also not uniform. It is also not uniform. And it is still unfolding itself. So we cannot relate the beginning of modernity with 23rd June 1757. Is it okay? Because it's a long-term process which is still unfolding itself with different degrees of success in different areas of life, in different walks of life. Is it okay? But of course we understand that this statement is about highlighting the role of colonialism in creating circumstances for modern transformation. So in this, if history of India is transition of India towards modernity, it started with colonialism. But since colonial modernity was what? Limited, partial, distorted. It was mainly meant for benefiting the British and not for modernizing the India. And modernization was not their primary objective. In fact, modernization and scope of modernity was limited by the colonial imperatives of exploitation. Colonial imperatives of exploitation were more important than their any desire for what? Modernizing India or any expression of civilizational burden and whatsoever. Is it okay with everyone? And that's why we have a rise of nationalism. So nationalism, of course in modern age we have many factors behind the rise and growth of nationalism. But under colonial circumstances, nationalism was basically a response to colonialism. Not only in India but also elsewhere. Nationalism was a response to colonialism. In fact, Indian nation evolved in its struggle against colonialism. It created some objective and subjective conditions for the growth of India as a modern nation. Is it okay? And nationalism played important role not only in the political liberation but also in modernizing India. So if you talk about Gandhi, the most conventional, the most traditional leader Even he, in his constructive programs, had something that was directly related to modernity. Of course, he was a supporter of traditional economic system based on handicraft and artisanal activities. He expressed his desire for Panchayati Raj institutions and all. But his followers were not very serious about his, this kind of musings or this kind of what we can say fads, F-A-D-S. At times we use the term fads, Gandhian fads. You must have heard of this term. In Hindi this term is more understandable, Gandhi ki sanak. So we have critics of Gandhi who talk about Gandhi ki sanak, Gandhian fads, और गांधी की सनक में ये भी शामिल था कि when the whole world was moving towards industrialization, large scale industries, big industries, Gandhi was thinking of handicraft and artisanal industries. When the whole world was thinking of urbanization and all, Gandhi was thinking of village life, simple life, life of poverty. It was life of poverty and life of virtue also. जहाँ आदमी दूसरे आदमी के काम आए, उसके पास इतनी फुर्सत हो कि काम आए. ठीक है, यार सी बात है, अर्बन एरियाज में इतनी फुर्सत किसी को नहीं है किसी के काम आए. ठीक है, so Gandhi may be very traditional, but if you talk about Gandhian political philosophy, Gandhi was very modern. If you talk about equality between men and women, Gandhi was very modern. If you talk about the composite spirituality of the East and composite spirituality of India as foundation of the Indian nation, Gandhi was very modern. Is it okay with everyone? So nationalism had its own limitations. National leaders differed in their conception of free India. It was not that there was one single monolithic movement that is called Indian National Movement. Of course, there was a movement which represented the mainstream. But there were alternative streams also, alternative visions of nationalism, competing visions of nationalism. So nationalism of Hedgewar was of course different from the nationalism of Gandhi, and nationalism of Subhash Chandra Bose was still different from the nationalism of both. And then we have nationalism of Muslim League and Jinnah also. Is it okay? So Indian national movement becomes a very complex movement. Is it okay with everyone? So even while using the same terms and same concepts, people had different meanings. You must have heard of, there was a term which has been used in Indian national movement called Swaraj. Swaraj. Literal meaning of Swaraj is self-rule. That was something being demanded by the extremist leaders. Extremist leaders. When they started criticizing the liberal leaders, because liberal leaders were demanding constitutional reforms, gradual constitutional reforms, and they, as a pressure group inside Congress, started forcing the liberal leaders to accept more radical goals for the Indian national movement, and Swaraj was presented as the more radical goal. Something that in the heated political climate of the Swadeshi movement was accepted even by the moderates. When as the president of the Congress session Calcutta 1906, Dadabhai Nauroji, you may have heard of, the famous liberal leader, declared the official goal of the Indian National Congress to be the attainment of Swaraj. Is it okay? But don't you think that Swaraj was never clearly defined? And it was understood differently. Liberals, even while accepting this concept of Swaraj, considered it to be what? A goal that is to be gradually realized through reforms. Whereas the extremists considered it as what? A precondition for reforms. And when Gandhi came, he did not talk about Swaraj, and he did not, in fact Gandhi did not he was not very much interested in explaining the goal. He was a mass leader. So you decide the goal, Gandhi will achieve it. It is something like this. But even Gandhi included in the idea of Swaraj not only independence of the nation, but also independence of the man from his evil tendencies. So rule yourself before you claim your right to rule your nation. Is it okay with everyone? So, but when we have Nehru, when we have Subhas, they started talking about Purna Swaraj. So see, the national movement remains the same, but its goals are being defined and redefined. And even while using the same terms, we have alternative explanations. In fact, we have a very interesting example here. The movement was civil disobedience movement. This movement was very intense movement, particularly in northwestern frontier areas. In that area, we have a very charismatic leader, a follower of Gandhi, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, also known as Simant Gandhi, also known as Frontier Gandhi. Is it okay? And only Gandhi could teach these Pathans what? Non-violence. Otherwise, we know their tendencies. They are still fighting. It was Gandhian magic that Gandhi succeeded in teaching these Pathans what? Non-violence, and they were typical Gandhian adherents during this movement, relying upon non-violent techniques. Is it okay? Lal Kurti, red shirts, they are called. Now these red shirts, when Gandhi was arrested, Khan Baba was also arrested, Nehru was also arrested, when all these leaders were arrested, they made a petition. Writing petition was a technique which has been invented by the liberals. That was used even by the later leaders. So they wrote a petition demanding release of their leaders. And they included few names. Their demands were like this: release Gandhi. It's okay. Gandhi was a person who can be identified. Release Nehru. After Gandhi, he was the most popular leader during this time. He was also the Congress president, which had accepted the session which had accepted the goal of complete independence. Is it okay? Lahore session 1929. So release Nehru. Of course, Nehru was also son of Motilal Nehru and well known person, and he could be easily identified. Then their third demand was release Khan Baba. Khan Baba, the same, their own leader, Simant Gandhi. And then their fourth demand was release Inqilab. Release Inqilab. Now the colonial authorities were confused. Who is this Inqilab? In which prison he can be found? उसको कैसे छोड़ा जाए? इनकलाब को कैसे छोड़ें? गांधी को तो फिर भी छोड़ा जा सकता है, नेहरू को छोड़ सकते हैं, सुभाष बाबू खान बाबा भी छोड़े जा सकते हैं. What about this इनकलाब? इसको कैसे छोड़ें? So what had happened? Can you guess? They had heard this kind of slogans. Gandhi Zindabad, Nehru Zindabad, Khan Baba Zindabad, इनकलाब जिंदाबाद. तो उनको ये लगा था कि इनकलाब भी कोई नेता ही है जो पकड़ा गया है, उसको भी छुड़वाते हैं. They were the people who are politically active, much politicized, participating in the Indian national movement. And see, they are confused with this very notion of Inqilab. Inqilab to Bhagat Singh was a revolution. To the Pathans of Northwest, it was a person who never existed. Is it okay? So can we impose the same degree of awareness and same understanding on the part of the different players of the Indian national movement? Even while using the same terms and similar concepts, they were what? Explaining them differently. And that's why we have many competing versions. And even today, don't you think that many people participate in political movements, but how many of them know exactly their aims and objectives? Okay, we have in modern age, 21st century, political rallies. Okay, किसी को पकड़ा, अब क्यों आए? बोला हम तो सब्जी खरीदने आए थे, गाड़ी आ रही थी आगे बैठ के. तो ये झंडा किसने दिया था? फलाना बाबू ने दिया, 100 रुपया भी दिया. ठीक है, तो उसका और देखिए चिल्ला रहा है भीड़ में, मीडिया दिखाएगी, बाप रे लोग कितने politicized हो गए हैं. See the strength of Indian democracy. 1 kilo potato and 1 kilo tomato. ठीक है, वो खरीदने आया बाजार से. ठीक है, गाड़ी फ्री की आ रही थी आगे. So at times we project our own impulses upon others. ठीक है, our own awareness upon others, our own sentiments upon others. Not only in case of present heroes, but also in case of the past. So if we see a particular thing from a particular angle, we try to impose our socio-ideological locations upon others in the past. ये सिर्फ मैं ही नहीं कह रहा हूँ. And at times this is done for legitimacy. वो भी कह रहे थे. You must know certain leaders. ठीक है, आजकल legitimacy के source हो गए हैं. Everyone is claiming them. भगत सिंह. तो चाहे AISF हो, उनका लाल सलाम भी भगत सिंह से, और चाहे एक वो है ना राइट विंग स्टूडेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, क्या नाम है उसका, ABVP, दोनों के ऑफिस में भगत सिंह दिख जाएंगे. भगत सिंह इज व्हाट? तो लीडर्स आर द वे लीडर्स आर एप्रोप्रिएटेड. ठीक है, अंबेडकर इज नाउ अ न्यू सोर्स ऑफ लेजिटिमेसी. हम ही नहीं कह रहे, अंबेडकर बाबा ने भी कहा था. तो जब बाबा ने कहा था तो नाउ आज के गांधी ने कहा था, इट कैन स्टिल बी क्वेश्चन. नेहरू ने कहा था, वो तो क्वेश्चन है उसके ऊपर, ठीक है। बट so this way we have changing perceptions towards history, changing perception towards heroes. We make our heroes, we unmake them, we kill them, ठीक है, फिर से उन्हें पैदा भी करते हैं हम. Is it okay? And at times we also create larger than life images. Larger than life images. Ambedkar was not as important, during the Indian national movement as he became later on, when we have awareness, increasing awareness among the lower classes. And today, if we talk about the tallest political figure, so there was a time when it was Gandhi. Of course, empirical survey तो कुछ हुआ नहीं है. It is all about perception. But today, the stature of Ambedkar is not smaller than Gandhi. That was not the case during the national movement. Ambedkar खुशी खुशी आए वहाँ से, इंग्लैंड से, राउंड टेबल कॉन्फ्रेंस. He had participated in all the 3 round table conferences, and he had secured a very important gains for the depressed classes in form of separate electorate. गांधी बाबा ने बच्चों की तरह ट्रीट किया अम्बेडकर को. सी द गांधी एंड हिज पर्सोना एट दैट टाइम. गांधी बोले क्या है इधर, इधर 1 मिनट दिखाना, इधर क्या, मतलब सेपरेट इलेक्टोरेट. कौन दिया? मैकडोनल्ड, रेमजे मैकडोनल्ड. उन्होंने कहा कि बड़े बदमाश है वो, तुमको पता है क्या है, खतरनाक चीज है, ठीक है, दो मुझे दो. बोले नहीं देंगे. मानी बोले नहीं खाएंगे. हंगर स्ट्राइक. एंड गांधी फोर्स्ड अम्बेडकर टू एक्सेप्ट पूना पैक्ट. Is it okay? For which both Gandhi and Ambedkar are perceived differently. Is it okay? And as a part of Ambedkar Pact, Pune Pact, Ambedkar had to abandon this, separate electorate and had to accept reservation. ठीक है. So there was a time when Gandhi इतने बड़े personality थी कि वो जो चाहते थे कर लेते थे. सुभाष बाबू, त्रिपुरी crisis 1939. He had won the election, presidential election. गांधी रूठ गए. कहाँ जीते हो? It was democratic election. He had defeated Gandhian candidate Sitaramaiya. You must have heard of Sitaramaiya. And the defeat of Sitaramaiya was called personal defeat by Gandhi. Gandhi said, it is my personal defeat. And Subhas Babu, हराने के बाद भी गांधी के beyond नहीं जाना. I hope you understand this. जबकि he was the most radical of the critics of Gandhi. वो भी जाके गांधी बाबा से बोल रहे हैं, बाबा जीत तो गए हैं, लेकिन जरा बता दीजिए कि काउंसिल में कौन कौन से लोग रहेंगे. गांधी बाबा बोले कि आप जीत गए हैं तो अपना काउंसिल भी बना लीजिए, हमसे कहीं पूछ रहे हैं. जैसे घर में बूढ़ा रूठ जाता है, ठीक है, आप अपनी मर्जी से शादी कर रहे हो तो तुमको जो खिलाना हो बरातियों को खिलाओ, हमसे कहीं पूछ रहे हो. समथिंग लाइक दिस. ठीक है, अब क्या करें. सुभाष बाबू को कांग्रेस छोड़ना पड़ा था. ठीक है, बहुत पहले से बेचैन थे वे एक अलग पार्टी बनाने के लिए. ठीक है, मौका गांधी ने दिया कि इलेक्शन जीतने के बाद भी गांधी फोर्स्ड सुभाष बाबू टू लीव कांग्रेस, नॉट बाय आस्किंग हिम टू लीव द कांग्रेस बट बाय क्रिएटिंग सर्कमस्टांसेस लाइक दिस. और सर्कमस्टांसेस कुछ नहीं, रूठ गया, बाबा रूठ गए, बाबा रूठ गए. तो जो सुभाष बाबू के सपोर्ट, जिन्होंने सुभाष को भी वोट दिया था, दे वर ऑल्सो नाउ रिपेंटेंट, गिल्ट, कि बाबा हम ये सोच के थोड़े ना वोट दिए थे उनको, हम तो सोचे थे कि कंप्लीट इंडिपेंडेंस आएगा. अगर आपके और उनके बीच में से किसी को चुनना हो तो हम आप ही के साथ है, उनके साथ नहीं. ठीक है, तो अच्छा हुआ कि सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर छिड़ गया एंड सुभाष बाबू गॉट एन अपॉर्चुनिटी टू व्हाट वी कैन से टू राइट द लास्ट एंड द मोस्ट ग्लोरियस चैप्टर ऑफ हिज लाइफ व्हेन ही केम टू बी एसोसिएटेड विथ INA. अदरवाइज इन 1939 सुभाष बाबू का पॉलिटिकल करियर तो खत्म ही हो गया था. इज इट ओके? सो द मीनिंग एंड सिग्निफिकेंस ऑफ लीडर्स, इवेंट्स, all these keep on changing in history, and that's why history becomes a very dynamic subject. It is not a static subject. हिस्ट्री में क्या है वो जान गए, जो हिस्ट्री थोड़ा ना बदलती. हिस्ट्री ऐसा सब्जेक्ट है जो रोज बदलती है. गेटिंग दिस आइडिया? हम सरकार चुनते हैं अपना फ्यूचर बनाने के लिए, सरकारें आती है हिस्ट्री लिखना शुरू करती. सो इफ यू आर नॉट इंटरेस्टेड इन हिस्ट्री, इट इज नॉट द फॉल्ट ऑफ हिस्ट्री. ठीक है, आपके अंदर वो अवेयरनेस नहीं है कि आप उसको परसीव नहीं कर पा रहे हो. इट इज नॉट कि पास्ट जो हुआ वो तो हो गया है. Now history is about what? The way that is perceived. And the way that is perceived is subject to what? The changing socio-ideological locations. And if you don't understand the changing socio-ideological locations, you will not be in a position to understand history. And if you don't understand history, UPSC has this capacity to outsmart you all the time. ठीक है, थोड़ा सा क्वेश्चन में ट्विस्ट करेंगे, आपका सारा नॉलेज रखा का रखा रह जाएगा. ठीक है, अगर आपने तैयार किया डिस्क्राइब द एक्ट ऑफ 1935, डिस्क्राइब, क्वेश्चन का एसेंस क्या है? डिस्क्राइब द एक्ट ऑफ 1935। कर दो डिस्क्राइब, 2 4 10 फीचर्स हैं, 1 2 3 4 5, फेडरेशन है, पार्शियल रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, ठीक है। इस लेवल तक अगर आप हैं तो कोई दिक्कत ही नहीं है। लेकिन दे कैन मैनिपुलेट हियर, दे विल आस्क यू एनालाइज। use of this single term has neutralized your knowledge of the all the provisions of this act 1935। अब लिख के दिखाओ, एनालाइज करो। So if you don't know the idea of federation, if you don't know the contemporary circumstances and the contemporary challenges faced by the colonial government, you cannot analyze the inclusion of a federation। Is it okay? और सुनिए, और डिग्री ऑफ डिफिकल्टी बढ़ा दें, हम बोल देंगे इवेल्युएट। लीजिए हो गया। कंक्रीट एग्जांपल दो। इफ आई से डिस्क्राइब दिस चेयर, डिस्क्राइब दिस चेयर, क्या लगता है? बहुत ही आसान सी चीज है। कुछ इंग्लिश के टर्म्स चाहिए आपको, ठीक है। इसकी लंबाई इतनी, इसकी चौड़ाई इतनी, इसकी मोटाई इतनी, इसकी ऊंचाई इतनी, इसका शेप ऐसा, ये डिस्क्राइब दिस चेयर। बट व्हेन आई से एनालाइज दिस चेयर, so then you should have to have idea about what, कि किस तरह का लेदर यूज हुआ है, किस तरह की लकड़ी यूज हुई है, लकड़ी मजबूत है कि नहीं, लेदर ड्यूरेबल है कि नहीं, इसकी ऊंचाई कम होनी चाहिए थी कि ज़्यादा होनी चाहिए थी। एग्रोनॉमिक्स के एस्पेक्ट भी इसमें आप जोड़ सकते हो, ठीक है, कि बैठने में कंफर्टेबल है कि नहीं, ठीक है। अब आप देखिए, अब वो सारा नॉलेज गया, अब ये है ऐसा काम नहीं चलेगा। आस्क योरसेल्फ बेसिक क्वेश्चंस। अभी मैं कह दूं इवेल्युएट दिस चेयर, सो नाउ इवेल्युएशन ऑल्सो इन्वॉल्व्स कंपेरिजन। हो गई खटिया खड़ी, अब वो नॉलेज भी गया। बिकॉज नाउ इवेल्युएशन डज नॉट रिक्वायर ओनली द नॉलेज ऑफ दिस चेयर बट ऑल्सो अदर चेयर्स, अदर सिचुएशंस इन विच चेयर्स आर यूज्ड, अदर मटेरियल्स ऑफ विच चेयर्स कैन बी मेड। इज इट ओके? तो हम कह सकते हैं आफ्टर एनालाइजिंग दिस चेयर विद दिस चेयर एंड द चेयर्स दैट वी फाइंड इन द फैकल्टी रूम, और ठीक है, सबका चेयर का जब आइडिया होगा दिमाग में, तब हम बता सकते हैं कि भैया ऐसा है कि दिस चेयर मे बी गुड फॉर व्हाट, अ टीचर इन द क्लास, बट दिस चेयर इज नॉट गुड फॉर अ डिस्ट्रिक्ट मजिस्ट्रेट इन हिज ऑफिस। बिठा दीजिए कलेक्टर को इस पे, तैयारी छोड़ देंगे बहुत सारे लोग। ऐसी कुर्सी पे बैठना है तो कौन पढ़ता है इतना। आई होप अंडरस्टैंड दिस, ठीक है। सो ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड थिंग्स, अदरवाइज यूपीएससी हैज दिस कैपेसिटी टू न्यूट्रलाइज योर नॉलेज। और जितना हम लोग कूदते रहते हैं ना, ये जान गए, ये फैक्ट वो फैक्ट, सब एक क्वेश्चन में जरा सा ट्विस्ट आएगा और वो सारा खेल खत्म हो जाएगा। अर्लियर दिस वाज कन्फाइंड ओनली टू मेंस, नाउ दिस इज ट्रू ऑल्सो इन केस ऑफ पीटी, एंड दैट्स व्हाई वी फॉलो नाउ इंटीग्रेटेड अप्रोच। जितनी समझ आपको पहले चाहिए था मेंस के लिए, उतनी ही समझ पीटी के लिए भी चाहिए होगा। क्योंकि पीटी में भी आपको स्टेटमेंट्स दे देते हैं, इलेबोरेशन दे देते हैं, ठीक है, सिचुएशंस दे देते हैं, क्या करेंगे आप। सो प्लीज मूव बियॉन्ड दोज आर्टिफिशियल डिस्टिंक्शंस बिटवीन पीटी एंड मेंस, ठीक है। दैट डिस्टिंक्शन एट टाइम्स वी टीचर्स क्रिएट, हमें सेपरेट सेपरेट बैचेज बनाने होते हैं ना, ठीक है, पीटी स्पेशल भी चलाना होता है, मेंस स्पेशल भी चलाना होता है। तो वी आर ऑल्सो, आफ्टर ऑल वी आर बिजनेसमैन, ठीक है। लेकिन आपकी बुद्धि कहां मर गई है? आपको नहीं लगता कि सब्जेक्ट की एक इंटीग्रिटी होती है? विदाउट अंडरस्टैंडिंग द कंसेप्ट इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू रिटेन द फैक्ट्स, एंड विदाउट रिलेटिंग द फैक्ट्स विद द कॉन्टेक्स्ट इट इज यूजलेस टू रिटेन द फैक्ट्स। ये कौन समझाएगा आपको जी, ठीक है। तो आप लोग तो बस तैयारी इस अप्रोच में आते हैं कि बस हम तो आ गए हैं, पैसा दे दिया, अब हमें आईएएस बना दो, अब हमारे ऊपर कुछ फैक्ट्स और डिटेल्स चिपका दो, हम जाएंगे एग्जामिनेशन हॉल में झाड़ देंगे, एग्जामिनर आएगा, लेके जाएगा, नंबर दे देगा घर पे, आईएएस हम बन जाएंगे। आईएएस आपको बनना है जी। दैट्स व्हाई योर एक्सपेक्टेशन फ्रॉम द इंस्टीट्यूट्स, योर एक्सपेक्टेशन फ्रॉम द टीचर्स, ठीक है, दे शुड बी वेल बैलेंस्ड। इज इट ओके? ऐसा नहीं कि आपको सब कुछ ऐसे ऐसे, ठीक है। दीज आर हार्श रियलिटीज ऑफ दिस बिजनेस, बट लेट मी टेल यू वेरी फ्रैंकली, इज इट ओके? बिकॉज योर इंटरेस्ट इज ऑफ, क्या हमारा बिजनेस भी तो आप ही से चलता है, फोटो कहां से चिपकाएंगे फिर अगर आप ही क्वालिफाई नहीं करोगे तो आपको क्वालिफाई करना ही हमारा अल्टीमेट ऑब्जेक्टिव, ठीक है। तो वो गारंटी वाला सस्ते वाला काम नहीं होता, ठीक है। हम लोग जब कहीं जाते हैं ना, तो लोग कहते हैं कि भाई आप आईएएस तो नहीं बने, लेकिन आप आईएएस बनाते हैं। आप सोच सकते हैं किस तरह की सिचुएशन होती होगी। ठीक है, आईएएस बनाते तो अरे कुछ नहीं करते, हम पढ़ाते हैं, हिस्ट्री पढ़ाते हैं, आईएएस नहीं बनाते। आईएएस तो आप बनते हो। ठीक है। और एक बात बताइए, अगर आईएएस बनाते हम आपको, तो आईएएस बनने की फीस इतनी कम होती है जितनी आप देकर आए हैं? कुछ सोचो ना, दिमाग लगाओ जरा, इतनी कम होती? हमें पता है कि आपको 5 से 10 करोड़ तो सिर्फ दहेज में मिल जाएंगे, जो करंट रेट चल रहा है। हम सीधे बोल देते 25% ऑफ योर डाउरी आईएएस इज गारंटेड। तो देखते फीस कितनी होती फिर? कुछ भी करा देते। ठीक है, तो हम लोग आईएएस बनाते नहीं, आईएएस आप बनते हैं। वी आर सिंपली असिस्टिंग यू, वी आर सिंपली रेजिंग योर अवेयरनेस लेवल। ठीक है, तो वो नहीं होना चाहिए कि बिल्कुल आए इंस्टीट्यूट और टीचर लद गए उसके ऊपर, अब बना के दिखा, मैंने तो एडमिशन ले लिया। ठीक है, सो मोस्ट ऑफ द प्रॉब्लम्स आर कमिंग ड्यू टू दिस रीजन ऑल्सो।